Small business war stories. Small businesses are the soul of America. And this is where they tell their stories. I am your host, Pablo Fuentes. Hey, lovers of small businesses and good stories in general. Welcome to episode 124 of Small Business War Stories. And today I was in Chicago, Illinois, and I had the pleasure and honor to sit down with Shelby Pollard and Carl Neureuther. And they are the, Shelby's manager and Carl's in charge of the acoustic section of Chicago Music Exchange, which is a very well-known, iconic music shop in Chicago. And we talk about a lot of cool things, guitars and amplifiers and the story of the business and all this, cool people that come and play guitars there, and have some fun along the way. These guys are a lot of fun, and but we also talk about what it's like to be a physical music store in an era of internet sales taking over or at least growing significantly in volume for musical instrument sales. So it's a really, really cool episode. And again, this was part of my visit to Chicago, Illinois. And the this episode is brought to you by Gusto. Gusto is spelled Gusto, and Gusto is a way to run your payroll, your benefits, your HR, and all your management tools. So if you are a small business, you need this because you need to focus on other stuff, and they help you focus on all things that you would rather not do. So go to gusto.com, gusto.com/war stories, and go get 3 months for free when you run your first payroll. And without further ado, let's get into today's episode, number 124, with Shelby and Carl at Chicago Music Exchange in Chicago, Illinois. And today I have the pleasure and honor to sit down with Shelby Pollard, who is the manager, and Carl Neureuther, who is the acoustic specialist at Chicago Music Exchange.
Hello.
Welcome to the show.
Hi.
And you guys are very romantically sharing a mic there. Shelby's holding it for Carl. This is a beautiful photo. I should probably shoot a photo of this before we leave here.
I feel like this is like a representation of our relationship. Here I am holding a microphone for you, but really it's just so I can quickly access it if I want to say something.
Oh, I didn't even think about it like that. I was going to say I normally hold your sandwich for you or something while we're working. So when you're here, you'll normally find one of us holding something for somebody else.
Really it's selfish.
That's a very collegial culture. I like it.
Yeah. We like each other.
That's a good start. I mean, show up every day and like the people you work with. So
most of the time,
We'll get into the times where you don't like each other later. But before we get into that, so we're sitting here. I mean, Chicago Music Exchange is an institution in the world of musical instruments. So what? How did this get started? And we'll get a little bit more into how it's evolved, because it's pretty different now from when it first started. So
I'm going to turn this one over to Shelby. I think he could speak better to it.
So Chicago Music Exchange was the brainchild of Scott Silver, who I don't want those.
He does not want
I want
kids.
to hear myself. That's not for me.
That's
then I get more self-conscious. Like, oh my, that's what I sound like. Oh,
you guys both sound great.
Should really not sound that way. Chicago Music Exchange was started almost 30 years ago by a gentleman named Scott Silver. It was created in a different location than it's in currently. It was on Clark Street, just about a mile and a half from here. And moved here. I think it's been in this location for almost 18 of those years. The store was purchased by David Colt in 2010, who kind of started to shift the way that the company was run and some of the focuses of the business, and we're continuing that tradition currently.
That's awesome. So I want to talk a little bit about what it means to be a physical guitar store in the era of online sales, right? And I know that you guys both play in, and we'll get into a little bit more about what you're doing on the online side. But let's keep it like, in a world where more and more sales for everything are happening online, and you see prices coming down because of that, and you don't have obviously the rent of a building, Where are music stores today, and how does CME relate to that?
I went to an AIM summit this year at NAMM, and that was a large percentage of what people were, having a conversation about. It was the retailer summits. How does a physical brick and mortar store fit into this online business? And it was really interesting for me to just kind of sit and watch, because we're on the perceived larger side of the independent dealers. So we have a lot of the same issues as some of the small mom and pop shops. So here, some of these smaller companies kind of struggling with the same thing that we do was really enlightening. But it also kind of made me realize that, our philosophy on that is really trying to instill the difference between price and value. And that's a really hard thing to do. It's really easy to just click a button and purchase something. We find that a vast majority of our business is not purely online. Although someone might call us because they saw something on our website, it generally ends up that they end up calling us. And they really still do want someone to inspect the instrument and have a conversation with them about that. And so what we talk about pretty much on a daily basis is that price over value mentality.
Yeah.
You could save some money buying it from somewhere else, but you won't have Carl, who deeply and intensely knows our inventory, to be there to help you through any kind of trouble that you have or any uncertainty that you might have. So that's the big struggle.
So are most people, how does that apply to beginner music players, right? Because I know a huge portion of the market is people, once you get into guitars, you tend to become crazy about them and I don't personally know any guitar players that have one guitar, usually you have more. But so is that level of interest in having the personal experience, is that mostly for veteran players or beginners as well? And how does that work? Do beginners also want somebody who shows them, what they should be asking about?
Oh, absolutely. I think it depends on what kind of person you are, right? I think in our current culture, there isn't one social culture anymore. There's a lot of fragmented different cultures, right? So you can be a person that just wants to click and buy something and completely live in an autonomous world where you can do that all day long. But you can also be a person that wants to have a better level of service or a personal aspect to that, right?
Yep.
So even, beginners, a lot of times they need someone like myself or Carl to walk them through, because they've read so many things on the internet and they get so confused about what's the right thing for them to do. And so I firmly believe, again, that's something that we talk about a lot, that's the most important service that we can offer for people is first time buying experiences. So
I think especially when people are buying their first instrument, they oftentimes don't give themselves enough credit to make that decision. Mm-hmm. I think forums have been a large cause of that, not trying to say anything negative about that, but they read so much about what they need and what they should buy. And I love it when somebody who is beginning, who has never played or let alone touched a guitar, comes in and I get 5 or 6 different things into their hands and let them know, for one reason or not, something is going to be more comfortable to you. And you're not going to be able to objectively or intelligently speak to why, but this one does the thing.
That's so true.
And I think beginners oftentimes don't give themselves enough credit in the ability to make that own decision. And I really have a great time just steering them down that path of making that ask themselves the right questions about what it is that they're looking for.
That makes sense. Now, do you also have other parts of the business that foster the idea of people come? For example, do you do lessons here, or do you do anything like that? Have you ever thought about, how do you think about that?
Lessons are great. We always suggest private lessons as probably the best, most effective way to get started. Certainly not the most cost effective, and not the most friendly to somebody who has limited amounts of time. But I personally firmly believe that having an individual in front of you, telling you what to do, who is also showing you stuff based on what you want to learn as well. There's teaching in itself, especially teaching music, is a talent of a totally different realm. And I know that when my hands do a certain thing, it's going to sound like that. And that's as intelligently as I could speak to playing guitar. No, I think the other thing that separates us as opposed to the autonomous buy and click thing is just the continued service. I mean, somebody comes in after breaking a string after they bought their guitar last week, and it's, yeah, bring it on in. I'll restring your guitar for you.
That's some
adjust the
hardcore
truss
bending
rod.
for a beginner.
Well, maybe they're not that much of a beginner. You know?
Yeah.
Or they grabbed it from the wrong spot.
Yeah.
Or that too. No, but whenever, especially local customers come in, we have a myriad of different instructors that we can recommend to people, especially based on what it is that they're looking to do, because I may suggest a different individual for that particular goal.
What about other things like live shows? Like, what other ways do you engage with the community to have this be a meeting place that's more than just a place where guitars hang on the wall?
Yeah, absolutely. We do that as often as possible, while it still makes sense. For instance, today we had the Gibson Custom Shop guys come out, and people were able to select their own maple caps for a Les Paul. So
and for our audience who may not know what a maple cap is, what is that?
Okay, so that's the fancy looking part on a Les Paul.
Okay.
So obviously wood comes in all different grains and shapes and appearances. So this way, somebody who's dropping a good amount of coin on a guitar can actually feel the raw wood before it's assembled, and that's a really cool thing to be able to pick out the component of your guitar.
Yeah.
And it's definitely a rare experience unless you go to the factory all the time, which most people don't. So it's kind of bringing that experience to them. But we try to do concerts as often as possible, either before or after hours. But I think that's another really good way to getting people into the store, even if you're not a guitar player.
Cool. I think this is my intuition, and I may be wrong, but I feel like a great majority of successful music stores nowadays have been around for a while. Like, you don't see a lot of like brand new music stores. Is that just my perception, or is that the case? Do you see?
I think that's a bit of perception.
Okay.
I think that there are some really great smaller shops, especially on the West Coast. Mike and Mike's Guitar Bar is one that comes to mind specifically in Seattle.
Yep.
That is a really hyper-focused vintage small store.
Yeah.
Especially with Reverb, and that is our sister company in full disclosure. But the idea in companies like Reverb are allow people to independently sell things quite easily.
Yeah.
The ones that are more public obviously have been around for a longer period of time and quote unquote are more successful. But I think that we also live in a time where defining a successful shop is a little bit difficult, because you independently could, from your own home, successfully
right there, and there's
buy
an
and sell
entire
instruments.
Cottage industry of people who basically buy and sell guitars and sell them on Reverb and actually make a living that way.
Right. So it's not really about a physical location at that point. So
that's really interesting. So this is a great segue to talk about Reverb. I don't want to gloss over that, because I know that. So Reverb, for our listeners who may not know, is a marketplace, right? That is, how would you describe it?
it's a marketplace for musicians.
There you go.
That's exactly their tagline.
Okay, boom. I guess 50% of it.
Yeah.
Thanks for helping me with the second half.
No problem. That's what I'm here for.
You've been doing wonderful.
I'm here to help
and you also have a matching turquoise ring right
we're
there.
Gonna we're gonna touch
there you
rings.
go. Boom.
You
boom.
can't see that. You didn't see that, but it happened.
It did just happen, and the blue lightning just went up to the sky.
Someone just came into the store like 2 weeks ago, and we had the exact same ring.
Oh, okay.
I was handing him a guitar, and he's like, "Oh my god!" And I was like, "Where did you get that from?"
Yeah.
But he was wearing it the wrong way, so I helped him with that.
Oh, it's facing out.
Because there's a right way and a wrong way. There's always a right way and a wrong way.
Discussions have been had about this in my household, but so let's continue to Reverb. So Reverb is very interesting. So it's a spin-off of CME, or is it like a sister company? What is it? So is it the same business?
No, they're completely separate businesses. It's often very confused, and understandably so. So David, who bought the store in 2010, had a lot of experience doing online businesses, and at the time when he purchased the store, was looking at avenues in which people were purchasing gear and just thought that they weren't sufficient. And so Reverb started out of this physical location and has grown into a 300 plus company with 4 buildings across the street.
Wow.
In a matter of 5 years, which is pretty I mean,
So Reverb has meaningfully more
that's in a
employees
matter of
than-
my time here in 5 years. I think it started 6 or 7 years ago. So, but they're growing astronomically.
So you probably have inventory on Reverb, but it's a separate. It's
Correct.
like a,
Reverb doesn't
Chinese
have
wall.
any inventory at all. It's all you can sell on Reverb, and we sell on Reverb.
Right.
Right. So, obviously, because David owned Chicago Music Exchange whilst building Reverb, a lot of the inventory at the beginning was Chicago Music Exchanges.
Yep.
But obviously, over time, as the platform grew, that's not the case any longer.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, are there still a lot of learnings that cross over? So, does CME learn from Reverb and vice versa, or is it pretty much like run separately? Like, do you ever have lunch from somebody from Reverb? I don't know. Like, how's that?
We are constantly
Yeah.
at war. No, up until like 2 years ago, or 2 years ago, we had all of our holiday parties together and stuff. And obviously, I think now more than ever, we're in a better relationship to learn from each other than really ever before. So we don't see Reverb employees as much as we'd like. They all often come over here because we still have all the inventory, right? So they're on lunch and they're all musicians and they're coming here to play gear.
Yeah.
But completely separate companies.
Got it.
I probably know about 10 people that work over there.
Got it.
So,
Okay, but that
but
was
we get
the
calls all the
way-
time that's like, you guys own Reverb, right? And it's like, no,
Yeah.
you are Reverb.
Yeah. They'll call and ask about a private transaction that they had with another individual seller somewhere, asking us for help.
Oh, so somebody from Tennessee bought a guitar from somebody in Tuscaloosa?
And that's fine. If you need help, call us. That's fine.
Yeah.
That's what we're here to do. But there is a big misunderstanding that there's a crossover. And
Okay.
there's not.
And so, aside from Reverb, how do you guys? What are you doing to adapt to this idea that more and more sales are happening online? Do you what percentage of your sales are done online, and what percentage of your sales are here in person?
Again, it depends on your definition of online. A lot of transactions. It's hard to fully track how a transaction or a relationship begins.
Yep.
Right. So, and for as smart as anything can possibly be, there are still factors that you can't completely understand. So how much can you say our social media plays into the reason that people want to purchase something, or our Facebook ad that we put out 2 months ago, incited someone to consider purchasing something in
Right.
2 more months. Right?
But do you actually have online sales where you ship a box to somebody?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what percentage of your sales is that, roughly?
So that's why I'm saying it's a little tricky because.
But like the times you ship a box.
But again, so the way that we do it in our store is considering how many times someone purchases something without a salesperson associated with it,
Oh.
and and something that where someone is associated with it. So that's why I'm saying it's a little bit different.
So what does that break?
So our online, for instance, all of our sales staff equates for, let's just say it's a 70-30 split, where
Okay.
our sales staff actually has far more of the transactions
Wow.
than things that are just natively purchased online, which is why, when we start talking about these things, anytime I talk to a vendor or anybody, I'm like, this is our experience,
Yeah.
right? We're not saying that this is the experience across the industry or, what everybody else should be doing or could be doing.
Yeah.
I've only ever worked here.
Yeah.
So
that makes sense.
our experience is that we still very much so have people, although it might have originated through an online platform,
Yeah.
reaching out for an associate to complete the transaction because they just, no matter what anybody says, you still want to talk to somebody.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I think we went through a long period of like just wanting automation and then realizing how awful automation is.
Yep.
How many times you just have to say representative before you really get super frustrated.
Representative.
Yeah, I think one of the other things that kind of skews that number is we're lucky enough to be the destination that we are in this industry. So you and I met 2.5 years ago.
Yep.
Because you came in to visit the store.
Yep.
Visiting from Austin, Texas.
Yep.
And we luckily get a lot of visitors from out of town, and a lot of relationships start by shaking somebody's hand that way.
Mm-hmm.
And you develop a relationship, and we've got some really, really special guitars here. And somebody may want to have somebody to talk to kind of talk about the nuances of it. And a lot of the times that results in me telling somebody not to buy a guitar because I know what that person is into and I know what they dig. And I know that if I ship them this guitar, even though that's technically something that is, shipped when you say put in a box and then sent across the country, that's not something I would consider like an online sale.
Yeah.
Or I would still consider that to be a result of us as a brick and mortar location.
Right. And also, let's touch on relationships a little bit, because a lot of the work that you do is going out there, not just, obviously you carry inventory from the large companies, the Fenders and Gibsons of the world, right? But you also have relationships with lots of smaller builders. So a few folks that have been on the show before, so Matt Ike from Mule Resonators.
Yeah.
You should start carrying White Sky guitars from Patch Rubin, the one that Gary Clark Jr. is playing
Yep.
now. But Victoria has been a guest on the show. Mark Beyer.
Big fan.
Yeah. And so what do you do? How do you go out and figure out who you want to meet and what are you going to buy? What's going to sell at the store? What is that process like?
It was the automated point and click thing that got me so interested in Mule Resonators. I saw them online and I instantly fell in love. I had a chance to play a handful of them and basically was just as annoying as humanly possible to my bosses until they decided to carry them into the shop. So,
Yeah.
And I can only speak to my experience with that company, but I know that any other salesperson on the floor here has some hand in some other small boutique brand to come in, because those brands too are not the things that we sell that keep the lights on.
Right.
Mule Resonators, although they're probably my favorite guitars in the building, if we didn't sell them tomorrow, it's not like we're going to shut down
But
the
at the
store.
same time, it does generate interest, right? People care because you have
of course.
those things.
And importantly so, because it ultimately adds to the culture
Right.
of who we are at Chicago Music Exchange. And it's not trying to go after the most popular thing, but going after the things that we genuinely feel are special and really, really cool.
Yeah.
I'm sure you have something to say.
Yeah, it's I've been pretty intimately involved with that particular topic over the past 3 or 4 years,
Okay.
and we believe here it's our responsibility for to the industry to continue some of these relationships, whether it be Gabriel Tenorio Strings in Los Angeles, a guy who was running around NAMM restringing people's guitars at booths and sent a bunch of samples back to Chicago, and I fell in love with the string maker.
Yeah.
To some heavier built and Echo Park for a certain period of time.
Oh yeah, he just moved to Detroit, right?
Yeah. And then we just brought on like a little company called Bunting and from Israel, and so for us, what I think the original question was, how do we decide who we take on, and it really comes down to is that business ready to work with us?
What does that mean?
Meaning, what kind of expectations do you have for your growth? Are you ready to grow? Are you ready to take 3 or 4 years worth of a price cut to fit into the market? Like a lot of the conversations I have with guitar builders or amp builders or anything like that, it's like, okay, I know where you want to be. How can we help you get there in a couple of years? And there are some times that those relationships don't work out, or they don't need our relationship. I've begged Dan Strain for 3 years to sell Danocaster. He just doesn't need to, right? Because he has enough direct business and he's doing just fine on his own. So there are things out there that we still go after that we can't even.
What else is on your wish list?
I won't say.
You won't say. You got
because
shot.
it's the second part of my of this conversation is that we also have, when I first came onto the floor, I wanted to make sure that we had a good relationship between the buyer and our sales staff, because if we have a group of people that aren't actually selling the item, making decisions for our sales staff, then those things don't get sold, right? And so for the past 3 years, we've made a pretty strong rule with Dan Borden, our main buying agent, and myself to say, okay, we need at least 3 other people to love this, right?
Interesting. So tell me more about that. I love learning about these processes people have.
It's a theory of I can love it all that I want, right? Mm-hmm. I can go to NAMM and I can find some weird boutique thing and completely fall in love with it. But if we don't have at least 3 other people that also love it, 3 other sales staff that's going to just take care of it out of 20, right? If there aren't at least 3 other people that are going to love it, then it's not going to work.
Yeah. So the 15% rule.
Right.
There you go.
You know, and so we require samples to be sent, no matter where you're from. You know,
okay.
like send us a couple guitars,
Yeah.
send us a couple amps. We're all incredibly snobby about this stuff at this point, right?
bet.
And as we should be,
Yeah.
right? There's a lot of great stuff out there, and all of those factors come down into whether or not we're gonna help, move your brand along.
And what's interesting is that you were talking about a world of automation, right? And like in the world, we're talking about online sales earlier. So in a world where everything is so available, I think like one of the things that's making a comeback, not just for guitars and musical instruments, but things in general, is a connection with the person who made it, right? So knowing like I met Matt, or I like the guitar downstairs, Seth Lee Jones in Oklahoma made the neck, and like having the connection to people. It's something that also makes a difference to people, right? And you probably do you have makers who ever come here and have like events where people come meet them or things like that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we do that either it's scheduled through a major vendor, or we're doing some smaller stuff coming up with specifically Santa Cruz.
Oh yeah, Richard.
Yeah, Richard's
he's
gonna
amazing.
come.
He gave me like a 2-hour factory tour one time. He's unbelievable. He showed me like the old stacks of wood that he has that was like sunk in the middle of the ocean or something. It's incredible.
Well, and that's what's interesting from this side of the table is, we had the privilege of going to visit some of these manufacturers, again, big and small, and especially on the large side, whether Gibson and Fender, there's some amazingly brilliant people working the line there, or running divisions that. All of the little boutiques that are sprouting up and making, everyone online wants to eviscerate Gibson and say, you're not making good decisions, or they've done terrible things. It's like, actually, the people that are really designing those guitars, they have all of those prototypes that just were never approved. Like they've been doing this for a really long time.
Yeah.
And so we have events in store, and a lot of those people come through, and it's always really enlightening.
That's awesome. Hey, we'll take a quick break here to talk about our sponsor, Gusto. That's Gusto. And you can go to gusto.com/war stories. But what Gusto does is they help your small business with payroll, benefit, HR, and other management tools all in one place. So what are some examples of that? Let's say that you have to run your payroll and keep track of all your tax documents, your W-2s and 1099s. Gusto does that. If you have a question about HR, maybe you don't have a dedicated HR department and you have some questions, give them a call. And also benefits. If you provide health benefits for your employees or 401ks, they can help you manage that. And if you don't, they can help you set that up. So they have plans for every type of budget. So they can help you run your small business better so you can focus on what you love to do. Go check out gusto.com, gusto.com/war stories, and go get 3 months for free once you run your first payroll. Let's talk a little bit about content. One of the reasons I think you've become a destination is because you have a great YouTube channel and people find out about you, right? And that's a big way in which people... So tell me something. I think a lot of small businesses that listen to this show want to have an online presence, want to do things on YouTube, and some of them successfully do. But what are the things that you've learned that have really worked for you, that have helped you attract people and grow that following?
Content can't be a requirement. It's a discipline.
Ooh, that's damn good.
It can't be something that you feel like you have to do, or that you feel like you need to figure out to participate in some kind of market share, because that's disingenuous and it comes across. So content, which I hate that word in the first place, especially as someone who's like a musician that makes records. People always say you have to make more content, right? That's a really gross way to look at an artistic expression, but that's the way we talk about it. So content has to be...
I didn't mean to offend you.
No. But you know what I mean? Like, words really matter.
They do.
And the way that you like perceive your actions can be changed in the words that you use.
Sure.
And I think that those distinctions are really important. I think most people try to pump out content and end up not understanding why it's not helping their business grow. Because it appears that they're doing the right thing, right? You have a lot of people trying to help you, consultants trying to help you figure out how to get better content, and it's really simple. Just be yourself. You know, for me, personally, I found the Jazzmaster platform.
Okay.
And when I first moved...
And what is a Jazzmaster for our audience who may not know?
It is the greatest electric guitar ever built by human hands.
This before we started rolling on this podcast, we were talking about Shelby's love affair with...
I have a love affair with a very particular guitar, and it is because it's just a really fantastic historical story, and I think they're fantastic guitars, and that is not the point. The point is... creating something that is supposed to be a representative of your business is really the most important thing that you have. Because like what you're saying, we live in a world where I can send a message to not only my favorite musician, but my favorite luthier and my favorite store, and I probably am going to get an answer back from those people, directly from those people. Access to human beings is at its highest as it's ever been, right? And so what you do with that platform is really important. You know, our YouTube channel wasn't the greatest platform for reviewing any kind of instrument. It's not like anyone, you know, you look at like Andy, right? And Andy is revered as the kind of golden standard of how you do a review, right? We were kind of the opposite of that.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't around for the beginning of it, but I hit the middle and currently am involved in it. But, you know, you look at the old videos of Alex and Joel and Brian, and it's just, I don't know, this sounds cool, right? And that's the way that we approach everything. I hate specs. I hate talking about nut width and fret wire, and it's like, does it feel good and does it sound good?
Yeah.
And that is who we are at the core of our business. And so content has to reflect your business model and what's important to you. You know, again, the Jazzmaster thing for me, I had a love for a particular instrument. I went out and I found 10 people that loved the same thing on Instagram, and I was like, I want to make friends with those people, and I did. And that's how you use content. That's how you use social media, is you find who you are, what you want to do, and find the other people that are also doing that, and grow together and become.
Yeah.
You
I mean,
know.
in many ways, that's what this podcast is. I
Right.
just love talking to small businesses. And,
Right.
Yeah.
But if it's a requirement, it loses its.
Well, and also you won't keep doing it, right? So
Right.
that's what I found. Like the number of podcasts that get started every year is staggering. I forget. I mean, I'm not going to try to guess the number, but it's very high, and a lot of them don't last past a certain number. And I'm sure with YouTube channels, the same thing,
Sure.
right? Versus people who actually consistently. So how do you guys generate ideas? I mean, do you have like sessions? What's your process for that? For your channel?
For our channel?
Yeah.
It literally is just capturing what natively is going on in the store.
Okay.
Things that are newly arriving. When we're at our best, which, you know, no one is always 100% at our best. When our channels are at our best, it is because someone has grabbed something that they love and are requesting someone film it or take a photo of it. That's it. You know, it's not... When we were really pumping out videos, I had a standing Thursday, and I would come prepared on Thursday with whatever it is that I wanted to do, whether it be a vintage piece or the new Old Blood Noise pedal or a new Fender Jazz Mat, you know, whatever it was. I had Wednesdays off, so I picked Thursdays and I would prepare, and then Thursdays would come in.
So is that you publish how often now?
Well, that would be like for our YouTube channel.
For YouTube. So how often do you guys put out a
like
video?
we would do like 2 or 3 videos in a morning, and then we would be publishing at least 3 to 5 videos a week or something.
Wow. So that's
At the height.
That's
you know,
dedication
we're,
to the game.
Yeah, we're restructuring that currently, but
what's your new plan?
we have a new team coming in, so it's going to be pretty much the same as it was prior. But you know, the thing is like, are you familiar with the guy that does the Knobs videos?
No.
They're really stripped down, simple demos. There's no talking. It's just a camera overhead and him fiddling with pedals. And I had a really interesting conversation with the gentleman that runs that platform about reviews and this thing.
Yeah.
When CME started doing YouTube videos and became like a pretty high presence in that, there weren't a lot of people doing the kind of reviews that we would do, which was just plugging it in and, here's how it sounds.
Yeah.
Right? It's a lot of technical conversation and specs, and it's real flashy. Really, Joel was the one that kind of pioneered that whole thing. It's like, I don't know, let's just plug it in, right?
Yeah.
Like, you be the judge.
Okay.
We're just letting you participate in this, right?
Yeah.
But now, 5-6 years down the road, everyone does that, and you kind of have to, again, with the content thing and finding your own voice. When you find a hole in the market, you have to be willing to accept that at some point is going to be copied many times, and you're gonna see yourself out.
Yeah.
Because when you find someone, or when you find that someone, you're like, I really wish someone would do something this way. You're like, this is a great idea, and you're the only one doing it that way. 5-10 years down the road, everyone's going to be doing that if you were successful at it.
Yeah.
Right. And so we're trying to figure out where we fit.
So then you think about, I mean, that's interesting. It's like the need to constantly grow, right? So you are now thinking about other interesting things that you can do to, continue to evolve.
Right. But it's their little things like does a 7-minute long video need to exist? Right. Instagram changes completely the way that people consume media.
Yeah.
So do we need to be making 1-minute videos? Or because of 1-minute videos or 8-minute videos more in demand, so those are the kinds of weird conversations. I love to sit and just blabber about vintage guitars, but does anybody really care about that? Who knows?
Right.
So it's this delicate balance of trying to be
I've tried to avoid nerding out on this episode too much about vintage because I could sit here and talk about.
Well, we can do an extra behind the scenes.
Ad addendum.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
here's the 5-hour session that happened after this. But
cool.
It's hard, and I think that again, it's you just kind of figure it out as you go.
Yeah.
You find out what works and what doesn't.
And you mentioned Instagram. So does the same team run your YouTube channel and your Instagram account, or is that what coordination happens there?
Yep, we have a complete in-house marketing team.
Wow.
For a while, it was really a lot of this social stuff was done by myself on the sales floor.
Yeah.
On a daily basis.
Yeah. And how many folks work here total?
100 plus.
Wow. Okay. So it's really gotten to be a bigger business.
Yeah. Over the past couple of years, we have an offsite warehouse. So
that's amazing. And that most of the growth started when the business was acquired in 2010, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's when it started. But up until 2015 or 16, everything was physically in this building. So
now you probably see a lot of incredible musicians come through here, right? I mean, even just downstairs, the guitarist for Greta Van Fleet, which is a great up-and-coming rock band. Well, they're kind of past the up-and-coming thing now, but
I think they have arrived.
Yeah, because
I'm pretty sure I've seen some photos of them playing festivals. They have definitely arrived.
Yeah.
They are here.
Well, they're relatively new though. They're only a few years around. In any case, what are some of the other stories, some of the other folks that you see come through? And there's probably too many to mention, but I mean to
Carl,
to
do
name
you
all
want
of
to
them.
start?
But
You want me to hold your mic for you again?
No, I really don't. Thank you. Oh God, I mean, one of the coolest things that I got to do, love him or hate him, somebody from Kenny Chesney's crew called about a guitar.
Mm-hmm.
And they were playing at Soldier Field the same day, and they said, "Yeah, is there any way that somebody could swing by?" I'm like, "Yeah, why the hell not? Of course I'll come by to Soldier Field and drop off this guitar for you. Absolutely." So I hop in a lift with the guitar. I get to Soldier Field, and I have to hop into this golf cart that takes me into the stadium, and then it pulls up onto the stage. And as I'm coming up the ramp onto the stage, then I see the stage view of all of Soldier Field, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Take the guitar out. Here you are. And to test it, he plugs it in as they're doing sound check. So he's running the guitar through all of the amps on stage as well as the house system throughout Soldier Field, and it's completely empty. And he must have seen the look on my face. I'm just like trying to play it cool off side stage.
Yep.
And he's like, you want to plug it in? So I just strummed an E chord through the house system of Soldier Field. I mean, that's just one thing that comes to mind. And even like halfway through that story, I've been so lucky to have these literally unforgettable events. But I think the coolest part that it boils down to is that a lot of these people you become buds with. As Shelby spoke to it, we live in an age to where you can simply just reach out to somebody on Instagram. And actually, the background on my phone is a guitar that I sold to Tyler Childers.
Mm-hmm. He's also up and coming.
And that's his main guitar, and that's one thing I'll never get sick of. But he actually hit me up on Instagram about that, which was a whole another thing. But getting to become buds with these people is, kind of a priceless aspect to it. But you're also an advocate for them professionally at some degree as well too. But seeing your favorite artists with the guitar that you set them up with, and then Ian No just is another really, really great artist. He just came out with a record, and I supplied him with a Jazzmaster that Shelby designed, actually, along with a really nice double-aught 18 Martin from the 60s. And you listen to these records of some of your heroes, and oh shit, I sold him that. I know that guitar. I know that. Coulter Wall's main guitar is one that he picked up here.
We just saw him at Red Rocks 2 weeks ago.
The single-aught 17. It's a 1937.
The mahogany one?
Yeah, the all mahogany one.
Yeah. I saw him in Austin and in Colorado. Yeah.
But yeah, it's a very humbling, cool privilege.
How crazy is that guy? I don't want to nerd out of music too much, but 23 years old. I tell people that he's 23 going 75. And he sounds more like Johnny Cash than Johnny Cash ever did.
Can you imagine what he's going to sound like in 10 years?
Yes.
But they're all the nicest people too. I mean, I haven't come across a jerk yet. Anybody. So
that's awesome. Can you think? I mean, there's a lot of cool sides to running this business, and it's obviously you get to step out on that incredible music floor every day. Can you think of a time when things went really wrong, and what did you do about it?
The most frustrating thing that I can come up with is when something is completely out of your hands. If I make a mistake, I have the solace that I know where that mistake came from, and that was me.
Okay.
But there are oftentimes a lot of moving parts because we rely on particular manufacturers to deliver certain things on time. And a lot of the stuff that we deal with too, it's handmade shit. So you're not getting pallets and pallets and pallets of stuff that's available in bulk all the time. So sometimes your custom guitar is going to take an extra couple months. And when somebody is originally ordering something, that couple months really could have made or break a deal. And sometimes, they'll go a different route. So the most frustrating thing for me is when it's completely out of my hands. Yeah. And I have to be, I shouldn't say it that way, but I mean, I hate delivering that bad news to somebody who I'm supposed to be an advocate for. Yeah. And it makes me feel like I let them down. Regardless of where the fault lies, but that to me is the most frustrating, difficult thing. Yeah, I would say.
Yeah. Have you? Did you guys see the movie Hateful Eight with Tarantino? They borrow. Do you know the story of this? So they borrowed.
Oh yeah, the guitar. Yeah. Okay.
They borrowed a guitar from the Martin Museum, which is worth it's insured for $600,000, but I think it was worth more than that. And they actually smashed
Kurt Russell, right?
Yeah, it was. His character smashes instead of one of the replicas, smashes that guitar. So as a consequence of that, Martin doesn't lend out instruments anymore.
Wasn't that in the scene too? In the scene is that actual guitar that he.
Yeah. That's what I mean. No, he broke the actual guitar. He's supposed to break a replica,
right?
But instead he smashed. It's on. You can see it on YouTube. It's crazy.
And apparently, the reaction of all the other actors, you see them.
It's real, right? Because it's oh my god, that was not supposed to happen. That's a long segue to the question: has anything really expensive ever gotten broken here?
Yes.
What happened?
Mostly in your world.
I know.
Oh, because you're in the fragile, you're in the 1930s.
I don't want to disparage anybody.
Electric guitars don't break that much, but acoustic guitars definitely do.
Yeah. So you know how about you tell me what happened without saying who did it?
It's no. I mean, I would never mention names or anything, but it's never been on purpose. It's always an accident. And the thing is we just handle so many guitars. It's if you're you're doing a circus game. Like if you do it enough, like you're going to land it one time. And this just happens to be the inverse, where if you do it enough, something negative is going to happen.
Sure.
So I think it's just one of the costs of doing business.
Yeah.
And, it's not you break it, you buy it. Shit happens.
Yeah.
We are also not shy about asking people to be more careful with our instruments if we feel nervous about the way that they're handling them. And I think also too, our store kind of is laid out to these instruments command respect.
Yep.
Because they are very special things, and everything's not kind of laid out like a garage sale. So I mean, we have a pristine museum quality showroom.
Yep.
That everyone is welcome to come in and try a $250,000 guitar, $250,000 guitar if they'd like, because they're very special things and they're meant to make music. And if you can't do that with them, then what the hell are we doing here?
Is that some kind of a burst you have down there or something?
That is a 1960 Les Paul Standard, Scarface.
That's insane.
Endearingly referred to. So if you come to Chicago Music Exchange, I will let you play a $250,000 guitar.
Wow.
And a more expensive one if we have one at the time. But it happens not very often. In my tenure here, there are 3 guitars that have broke that I'm aware of, and one of them was me. So
Ooh, what'd you do? Now we know where that problem came from.
Look, it was a $200 Yamaha, so there was that.
Okay.
But yeah, it's you're unboxing a million guitars and you're going a mile a minute, and you're just not as careful as you should be, and it's just a game of numbers. I mean, eventually it's going to happen. We've got
but three seems like a pretty low number, actually.
Oh yeah. I think we prevent it as best as we can, but it's also too, these things again are meant to be played, and we're not going to make you play a guitar with a glove on or make you put a smock on or something. We're going to ask if you got a leather jacket with a million zippers and buttons, we will ask you to remove that. But they're really special things, and it would be a shame if we didn't let people play them.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes
Cost
sense.
of doing business.
What would you say is the number one piece of advice you have for other people in small business? What have you learned that is something that you want to share?
I love that you handed that right to me.
I don't know.
Like I said, I think it's be yourself. I think it's find what it is that you want to do. Literally define in your mission statement of what purpose it is that you're trying to serve. Going back to that AIM Retailer Summit, everyone was so frustrated. People buy stuff on Amazon and then they come in my shop and they want me to help them fix it. And it's like, well, yeah, that's the service that you provide your community. If you can't turn that around, if you're frustrated by that, then you're not exactly doing the thing that you're supposed to be doing, right? Like, just because someone didn't purchase it from you doesn't mean that you shouldn't offer them your advice. After 5 years of working here, I feel like, between Carl and myself and most of the staff, we have experienced and touched more instruments than most people do in multiple lifetimes. Right. And so it is our responsibility to help facilitate other people's experiences. I get messages constantly on Instagram asking questions about things that people will never buy from me. That doesn't matter. It's not the point. Right. So for small businesses to be successful, you need to figure out what is it really that you want to do? At the core of who you are and what is it that you're trying to accomplish, and just stick to that.
That's awesome.
I think also too, ultimately, no matter what it is that you're doing, in our case as a guitar store, is being an advocate for your customers. And sometimes I think, like I said earlier, that means telling somebody to simply not buy something. And when it comes down to it, is you have to put yourself.
You said that happened today?
Oh, yeah. I literally told someone not to buy something today.
Why is that?
I do multiple times a day.
Really?
Yeah.
It boils down to you learn what the customer is looking for, and if the thing that you have that they are looking at is not the thing that they want or need, you need to advise them not to get it. With Richard Hoover as well too. I love whenever we start to design a custom guitar with Richard Hoover, somebody will say, I need a spruce rosewood dreadnought because I want it to sound like this. And half of the time they will design a completely different guitar because Richard will listen to what it is that they're looking for and say, well, actually, based on what you said, I would suggest X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, save them from themselves.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, at the same time, too, there have been several instances to where people have called me looking for a guitar. I know that I don't have it, and I know that I don't have anything that's going to check those boxes, but I've sent them a couple links to other sellers on Reverb.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, but this looks like a really good deal, and hey, this looks like it's going to be right up your alley, and this is definitely the route that you should go.
Yeah.
And in the immediacy, that does not speak to numbers, but it's doing the right thing and being an advocate for the people that you're supposed to be there for.
That is awesome.
And I just from a management side, I just want to speak to Carl's point. It's really, really easy to figure out who is doing that and who is not, because people who sell the right thing the first time don't have returns, right? You know, and that's what we're trying to do. Is like, even if you get something to somebody, because buying something sight unseen is really hard to do. You're depending on Carl to describe it to you over the phone or maybe over email. If you get something that you don't like, great, let's find the right thing kind of mentality. And or, you know, cultivating those relationships. I tell our staff all the time to tell people not to buy things, because a lot of times.
How do you make that judgment call? Like, what? Give me an example of what happened today.
Today, an older gentleman was in the store. He wanted to buy a $800 Music Man guitar that he was worried about, that was a complete junker. And I said, you shouldn't buy this. He's like, well, why? And I said, because you have a lot of nice instruments. Don't buy this thing that you're. I was like, do you normally fix up guitars? He's like, well, no. I was like, well, why?
I do. I want to see that.
I was like, why? I was like, why would you start now? You're gonna buy something from us that's gonna sit in a corner and you're gonna regret it. Save your money. Call me when you find something cooler.
There you go.
And he's like, well, why do you guys have that guitar in your store? And I was like, because it's for the guy who can only afford a $800 guitar that wants something that's vintage, that's gonna make some like crazy punk music in someone's basement. Like, that's what that guitar is for.
It's like a Teisco ET200 or something like that.
Yeah, it's just like the whole neck broke off of it, right? But the same thing like happens on the phone all the time. People call and they ask questions. Our responsibility, as I say most of the time, is to undo what the internet has told them. You know, because they don't. Yeah. Again, like, people don't get the experience to spend as much time with instruments as we all have here.
Yeah, that's my favorite quote. Don't believe everything you read on the internet. Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah, Abraham. He was a smart cat, you know. He really, really saw what was coming.
Where can people find you? If people are interested in visiting you, finding out more, what are your handles on social media? What are where can people find your YouTube channels, of course?
We are at Chicago Music Exchange. I also run the @CME Acoustic Room page if you want to check out a bunch of cool acoustic guitars. Shelby?
I am at Shelby Pollard. And it's mostly Jazz Masters and pictures of my dogs. Dog. Just one dog.
But yeah.
And you have a dog. Dolly Barton is your dog?
Dolly Barkton.
Yeah, I have Muddy Waggers.
I have Towns Van Cat as well.
That's amazing.
So, we should get a band going together.
Yeah.
Get the super group.
I just got to play the Old Quarter not too long ago. But that's outside of the scope of the podcast.
But at Carl Neurouter as well. Carl with a K. Yeah. And good luck spelling the last name, but, you know.
Rock and roll. Well, Carl.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Pablo.
Shelby, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you so much for swinging by.
Absolutely. Take care. Small Business War Stories. Small businesses are the soul of America. And this is where they tell their stories. I am your host, Pablo Fuentes.